This
information.
conference will now be recorded.
Oh, yeah. We're going to be doing this. We're going to be doing this with 2019 information. And why would you want to do that? Since we're already sitting here in August of 2020, so 2020 is almost done. Why would you want to do 2019 information? Was a question that was asked to me. And the reason why you want to do this, as we keep building the database year after year, and as business changes, it's okay to look back and take the information. This is from 2019, a full fiscal year, and benchmark and analyze our businesses, which many have some of the same styles and many have different styles, based on a full fiscal year, that you can use that data to then challenge your teams. Our business is not that different from year to year, but things happen. Obviously, we're in a pandemic, so 2020 is going to look a little bit different. But it gives you a baseline to then challenge your teams and look at it as a continuous improvement project. And part of the process of your company, a healthy thing to do is to continue to challenge yourself and look at your numbers. You can also use these figures. What's really helpful is a lot of times when you're going through a budgeting process and you're looking for good data or challenging your teams or what can you do better, you can use this as a baseline to then challenge your teams on setting your budget for 2021 with the information that you have. Then we're going to keep doing this. We're going to be able to do this a little bit easier in 2020 if you go through the process. And going through the process is just as important as actually getting the report. So you'll learn while you're doing that. In addition, you'll have an outside resource to challenge your teams. What a lot of owners, CFOs don't realize is that the teams that you're working with, they're looking at you as when you're talking or challenging them that you're old hat. But now you have a resource of 80 different companies and what they can do, and you could show that there's something outside the little bubble that they're living in, which is your organization. So, and then you could also use me as a resource because I see all these numbers to help you challenge your team. So that's what the Rockheads is all about. So we're here for that. Does everybody understand that? Now, most of you guys that are on this call really do understand that, so I'm preaching to the choir. But at the same time, maybe we can challenge our Rockhead members, our Rockhead brothers and sisters, I should say that because we have women on the phone, to challenge them to get their data in, because the more data we have, the more powerful this becomes. Anybody have any specific questions that they want to address? I want to try to make this, I see some of you are mute, some of you are not, but things that I want to address as I go through the report, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to first walk us through page by page, ask if there's any questions. A lot of times people are making this a little more, they're more worried about being exacting than getting information in. So what I want to share with you is I usually use a statement that I share with my clients and our fellow members that decision one is better than decision none. So having some of that information in, even if it's not perfect, it's still better than nothing. And we're using this, it's a work in progress. So we're always going to be challenging where those numbers come from, or if they're good or not. Now I'm going to notice when I'm putting together and looking at the report, if there's something off track, I'm going to be able to challenge you and come back to you with that as well. So some of the time that people are taking or feeling that this is a really difficult exercise, they're really overthinking it and taking too much time to then get the information in. Also, if there's some information that you don't have, that's okay too. We'll know that. We'll use that. I'll tweak the report to make it work for everybody. But then also you'll have a baseline to then start tracking or doing it better next year. Just the process of finding the information, tracking the information will create improvement with your organization, which is really what it's all about. So that's just kind of my general overview. Is there certain questions or things that I want to make sure I address as I go through, or I could just start and then I can open it up. Anything in the up front? No. Okay. So this is the first page where we log in. We have a dummy account called Rockheads. We play with this. We work with this all the time. You'll see on here various different buttons, okay? The most important button is really the data entry button. So that's this character, caret here to open it up. You also see dates. So if you've been in this report year to year, what we do is we freeze the dates and we're able to go back in history. So we actually keep the history of everybody's numbers. So we'll actually have this as a resource and we can create and look back at data, and as things change in our industry and data improves, we can go backwards. Well, I'm going to focus in on 2019 because this report has also evolved over time as well. Some of you that are newer members, we actually used to do some of this reporting on spreadsheets. So now we've got a little more sophisticated. I worked with the software developer to help me put this together. So you'll also see that there's an export button and a view analytics button. At the end of the day, you don't want to use these buttons until we freeze all the data, and then it will give you access to create a report. What that allows us to do is then the report that we actually send out or email out, we can, if data needs to improve or there's a correction made later, you can then run your own report at a later date and see the full picture. So that's what those buttons are there for as well. So I'm just going to click in and go to the data entry piece for everybody. Any questions on that before I dig in? No, okay. All right. So you'll notice here in this tab, Amanda, is it big? I just want to make sure, is that screen big enough for everybody? Can you see, is it pretty clear?
It's clear. I just kind of zoomed in on my screen so I could see, you know, a little better.
Let me see if I can make it a little bit bigger. Okay. So with the way we have this set up, is all this drop-down menu that you see on the left. These are all the pages that for data entry. Okay. So it was made this way too, so you can break it up amongst your teams. There's different information that would come from different people within your organization. That's a good way to attack it as well, because some of the information might come from payroll versus your financials versus your shop floor. So a good way to attack this is to break it up amongst your teams or your managers by various departments. Now, I'm going to touch on a few things here. So first, we'll talk about the sales mix. Also, what you'll notice is across the top, it's automatically going to default for you, it should, to the fiscal year 2019. Most of you are on a calendar year. If you're not, just go back, just use the last date that is as closest to that if you're a mid-year closing and drop those numbers in. That would be fine, and just understand that you're comparing your, we'll call it an interim year or a different fiscal year than to everybody else, but it's really the same. You're still doing 12 months of activity. Now, we have this page here. The reason this page was put together was we thought it would be kind of interesting, one, to see the mix of types of sales by material and product, and then types of sales by customer category. Now, some of you don't have the ability or easily able to get this information. It's okay if you estimate where some of these things are, and there's easy ways to do that. And if you don't have it, that's okay too. Pick your major category. The most important thing is that your totals match. And if you can't get it by material or by category, make sure your bottom line total equals and just fudge it, because that's okay. It's the bottom line total that's the most important when driving the reporting process. Now, what I would do once I see it, I might go back and challenge you and interview you and talk to you about how to get at these numbers, or a best way to take an estimate to get at these numbers. Is there any questions on that? Now, last year we created a pretty cool pie chart that showed where most of the sales were coming from and where the sales categories are coming from with our group. What's also kind of neat is that we'll be able to use that data and see performance. Are some companies that have more concentration in some of these other categories performing better or worse than others? We could have really good discussions around that. So that's what this is for as well. This will also help me figure out where to focus in trying to bring benefits to the members on what categories we're working with, or who should we be networking with to bring sales and revenues to the members as well. So this will be a powerful tool for our group. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next page. So direct labor. Now, this report has evolved over time, and I laid this out in a process what I like to call direct contribution to margin. So I look at this as a operational management report and how you would manage your teams and how you can control your teams to get contribution margin and how to create performance improvement. So that's how I kind of created this report. So I made it so direct labor. So this category is made, what we're trying to do is get apples to apples comparison. Some of you look at it differently, and that's okay, but we're trying to set a standard, and I picked a methodology to drive comparisons. So some of you don't have all this information and all this detail. It's because everybody has something different or is handled in a different market, or taxes are different, or things of that sort. At the end of the day, some use subcontractors to do work, some use direct payroll to do work. At the end of the day, as long as you would see, you can't see it here, but it will subtotal to where your number is. If you don't have these breakdowns, the most important thing is to just make sure it's at the top. Put all the number at the top. It's okay if every category is not filled out. Now I'm going to do that, and I'm going to take some, if I'm doing the report for you, like the offering that we rolled out to everybody, I'm going to take my own methodology to try to get to the best information here. Now, this is good information to use in the future, but again, the most important thing is the subtotals by category. So do the best you can, because at the end of the day, when we create the report, it's really about the totals. And then we could drill down and use this information for future discussion. Any questions on that before I move to the next page? A quiet group today. Okay. Oh, one other thing. A lot of people look at their direct labor and they only look at the labor, and and sometimes you have a manager that might manage a couple areas. So you might have a template and CAD manager, or sometimes a template and installation manager. We understand that. If you allocated them, we want the manager as part of that because they're in control of these categories. Okay, so that's why I said if a manager exists, include the manager in the category. If they cross categories, split their wages amongst the couple categories the best you can. So if you're a template and install manager, you might want to split their time 50-50, or use an estimate on where they spend most of their time. It's not going to skew the numbers terribly much if somebody does it a little bit differently. At the end of the day, we know where their direct labor numbers come out. So that's one point I wanted to make. Okay. The other thing in contribution margin is your direct material. So we have material categories. There might be others that you might have that we didn't anticipate. If you wanted to send me an email or ask a question, or do the best you can to drop in what category those might fall into. So, for example, porcelain, you would probably put in an ultra compact category. Or we might, in the future, I always take some feedback and improve on it. As the industry grows, I might just do pure porcelain and add that category later. But right now, I think it's okay to put it in ultra compact. And then if you have cabinets, tile, all the other categories, we use this because I carve out some of that information to create an apples to apples comparison, because we have some companies that sell other products or do other things, and we understand that falls in there as well. In addition, if there's not clarity, I want to point out one of these things. So see this question mark on the right? These are called tooltips. So the more questions that I get from people, typically if there's a question, then it's not clear, or it's not 100% clear to everybody, I will add more tooltips to then try to create more consistency as we keep building this out year to year. What's interesting is that's kind of died down since we built out this report. But for example, a lot of people ask, where should shop supplies? Should I put small tools in there? And so that's why when you hover over that, you can see that, and I'll build those out. Direct fuel, things of that sort, waste removal, all put in here to come to your gross margin. Before I move to the next page, does anybody have any questions on that? No. Okay. Okay. Next item is the indirect labor. So this is anything that's not part of producing the countertop, outside labor, outside indirect, something not directly in producing the countertop. So sales team, marketing team, if you have an IT guy, an outsourced IT guy, customer service team, all that stuff would be built in here. Again, the most important thing is to at least get one of the categories filled out, because it's about the total again. So again, if you don't have some of that detailed breakout, it's okay to put it at the top. Okay. And year over year, we've been building these categories out. You see this past year, we added building maintenance, because a lot of companies are adding a maintenance person or a repair person to their team. They're not directly involved in producing the countertop. That's why we put it in indirect labor, but I added that last year based on some feedback. What's interesting is that I love looking at this stuff after everybody gets it in, because I get to see that, for example, I think it's really important, and a lot of companies don't do this, to have a maintenance person on their team. If you can make that happen, that seems to be a big improvement that I've noticed that can help companies create a performance improvement. So that was another category. And as we learn and more things happen, send me information if there's more other types of labor, I'll build that out as well. Any questions there? Okay, good. Okay, SG&A. That stands for Sales, General, and Administrative Expenses. Okay, this is what a lot of people refer to as your overhead expenses. And so this has grown. What's interesting about this is, as we build this out, it's an interesting comparison. We don't spend a lot of time with all this detail, but I think in the future we'll start drilling down and really see where companies are putting their resources towards these SG&A or overhead type costs. And this is kind of grown over time as well. So there was a question I think someone had on that was sent beforehand on rent. Now, some companies own their own buildings. I still suggest, and you could talk to your accountant, you could talk to me. I really suggest, if you own your building, to have it outside and another entity account for that as if it's outside your business for a lot of reasons. And I'd be happy to have those discussions offline from a tax planning, from a risk management perspective. But if you don't, what we want to do is you should really put your market rate rent in there as if you're paying yourself rent and include that as an expense. So that would not skew the numbers, and we'd have a little better apples to apples comparison. I'll be able to also see that when we fill out the balance sheet side and see if you have those types of things in there. Any questions on the SG&A? Okay. This is something that has kind of evolved over the years. So you see this category is other expenses and one-time expenses. Why do we have this? Well, I like to analyze the business based on EBITDA, or earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization. That's how we've had some meetings around this, but that's how you use that figure to evaluate your business and create a business valuation and see what your business is worth. There's a lot of discussion around that. We could have a whole conference just on valuing your business and drill into that. And it might be a good topic. We had somebody in, Mike Travert from Markham, talk about business valuation. I know I've done business valuation and mergers and acquisitions as well. This is good information to have. And if you start thinking along those lines, this was to spur those conversations, and then also really kind of understand what your business could be worth. So you'll see these one-time adjustments. This could be built out as well, but we kind of want to just kind of wet the whistle in this area, and you'll see this adjusted earnings figure. So this could be, this is for a bigger discussion, but that's what this area is for, to understand what your business might be worth. There's not many calculations in the report about it, but having that information there and then having business valuation discussions in the future is why we have that. Is there any questions in this area? It's also helpful if you have one-time adjustments. So a lot of companies might have some challenges with managing their inventory, or how they value inventory, or changing how they value their remnants. So you might have like a one-time adjustment, and that can help anybody through that if there's questions in that area. Okay. This has kind of evolved over time. So the next thing we have here is the balance sheet. So when I first did this report, I tried to make it simple and really crunch down various items. What happened is that kind of burned me on the creation of the report, because I wasn't able to control the accuracy of the information. So this build out of this balance sheet is there to try to capture the accuracy of the information of companies that are putting it in. And then if there's additional information or additional breakout items, love some feedback here, because what I do with this information here is we created a financial health checkup ratio analysis report, and the breakout of the balance sheet is important to get in there, and that's why that's there. And we can continue to build this out. There might be some other categories for the future, so any feedback there is welcome. One of the things that happened in the past is people were entering whole numbers. For example, in the allowance for doubtful accounts, that would be, since this is a financial call, it's a contra asset, so it would be a negative number to kind of offset it. So when you enter it, that's why I added this tooltip here, that you hover over it, that enter the number as a negative. Same thing with accumulated depreciation. Enter as a negative so we can get to your net number. Okay. All right, so that's all the financial information, and I'll show you at the end kind of how that will drive the report. So now we're getting into some analysis that we'll do. So we tried to go on a high level. FTE, as you can see down below here, is explained. That's full-time equivalents. So as simple as I can make it, if a person works 40 hours a week or somewhere in that range, that's a 1 full-time equivalent. So we're trying to, a good barometer to use is your head count, and managing your business and analyzing your business by your headcount, that's your biggest cost center. So looking at a high level, I suggest looking at that often, because sometimes that gets out of control in your business. Good way to manage it, good way to look high level. What we're trying to do here is take your snapshot. So if you have a payroll as of December 31st, 2019, that's what you're going to use to just do a headcount at that point in time. That's the number you're going to use in here. Now, some of you use subcontractors, and that's okay. And your headcount might be real low, but you use a lot of subcontractors, maybe do your installation. In order to get an apples to apples comparison, do your best estimate for example, if you had a subcontractor installation team, and if you know that it's a two-man team, use 2 in your full-time equivalent in that example. The reason, and then that will help it get to apples so we can compare to others that have in-house employees that do that same work. So that will kind of help create apples to apples comparison in that area. If you have somebody that's part-time, you can use them as a 0.5 or half of a full-time equivalent as well. Sometimes we use outsource or part-time people. Any questions in that area? Okay. Okay. Square footage. There's some companies are really good at it and tracking square footage, some are not. This is not devastating if you're not. It's another way to look at your business. It's another way to analyze it. Obviously, we've had a lot of discussion with Ed Hill on how to look at your business and tracking by T dollars, but it's also good to have a barometer on your square footage, and it's good to look at it in a couple different ways. So we're trying our best to see these categories. Now, the reason why they're broken out in various ways, because some companies do cut the size projects, so they might sell more square footage, or they might not install a project. They might just fabricate a project and not install. Or there's companies out there now that just fabricate and don't install as well and fabricate for other companies. So if you're looking at from just a production standpoint, that's why we kind of broke these things out. Then the other categories below are just to see kind of how much resources or that companies are investing in various types of space. So warehouse space, showroom space. What's kind of a phenomenon that's kind of interesting that's popped out of this at times, sometimes the bigger showroom is not better. And so that kind of shows, sometimes you don't need the big showroom to sell. And so that those foster those types of discussions, but we only know if we see what revenues are by your square footage and your square footage of your showroom sales space. So that's kind of an interesting way of looking at some things. So that's why we have all these categories. Okay. Okay, Rework. We've had a lot of discussions as Rockheads on Rework. We've had topic over topic, and it's always a really good topic. Profitability is driven by amount of rework a lot of times, and there's so many different ways to skin this cat. Some companies I've noticed make it way too complicated on tracking their rework, and sometimes they have analysis by paralysis by analysis, and they overanalyze that area. So this page has evolved, expanded, and contracted over the years. And I think I finally settled on the best way to handle this, to try to keep it as simple as possible. I also recommend to try to keep it as simple as possible in your company, because that's when you'll really use the data. So as you look here, this really is as simple as it gets. How many projects did you perform in the year? Count the number of projects, and then how many projects had errors. Now, you might only have the total, but if you can, try to estimate or guess, and I suggest tracking it by these 4 areas in your company. And where did the error start? Did it start at sales? Did it start at template in CAD? Did it start in fabrication? Did it start in installation? Now, I know that you can have an epidemic and it can go all the way through, but pick one category where that main error happened. When I was running my fabrication company, I'm going to tell you, as I really dissected and analyzed it, most of my errors were really driven by the sales department and the customer service department, and I focused in on communication once I started tracking it, because you always have in the company someone pointing a finger at somebody else's department. They're the problem. And what flushed out when I started doing this is my problem was on the communication and the sales floor, and I focused in on that, and then everything else seemed to get better as I did that. So that's kind of a high level, but we can challenge each other, and it's easier to track, and it's easier to have discussions around it. So that's why it's kind of dialed back to this analysis. Any questions there? Nope. Okay. Either I'm doing a really good job of explaining or, okay. So wages. This is exciting, actually. I'm pretty jazzed to be getting this information. So we've added this year and we built it out. So we have every single category, okay, of wages. So we want to see your average wage from an entry level to experienced, and then average overall. What's going to be really cool is we'll have this by these are questions that are asked all the time. How much do you pay? How much do you pay a subcontractor? So we have that information down here. How much you pay? A lot of times you're paying by the square footage. And we'll get to see overall how how wages are changing over time. And it's really interesting how this kind of plays out. But we have every single category that we added this year. We understand that different markets pay differently, and we'll be able to extract that data. So we'll have you put in your region. I'll be able to fix it, but if we even added this, so if you don't know what region you're in, there's a simple map here. This tells you what region you're in, so you can drop that down. But we'll fix it too if it's not there. We just try and make it easy. So this report, I think, will be extremely powerful if everybody populates this area. Now, the average is pretty simple. You break it out in your category. You can put it on the spreadsheet. You can analyze it. And then the median, you're really simply just picking the middle figure, because you might have a wide range in there. So that's why we ask for the median to see if data is skewed on your averages. So that kind of helps in that analysis. Any questions on the wages? No. Okay. All right. So after all that information is entered, okay, you're going to get a report, and it's going to compare you get to look at it right here, just to kind of do a double check. These are all the different pieces of information that you're going to get on your company alone. That's what you're going to see, okay? You're going to see, this is what I was talking about, the financial health. So we're going to calculate all these different ratios. There's a key that you'll get to explain what these ratios mean, okay? We'll have good discussions around that. We'll have meetings around this kind of stuff. Really good information. It's also going to be, it will be cool for you to kind of zero in and focus in on what things you should focus in on your company. Percentage of sales. So your metrics and costs as a percentage of the overall sales, all here. Then we try to carve out, if you have multiple businesses, we try to just carve out the countertop business, and then have it, this is with all your entire business. So if you sell cabinets or tile or things of that sort, that would be in there. But we tried to then create an apples to apples carve out of just the countertop business, because we're a countertop organization. Then again, we talked about the full-time equivalents. This is, you're going to get that analysis. And then we actually do it based on annual, daily. So if you like to look, if you think about your business on a daily basis, okay, it's really just taking those ratios and allocating them by the day. And then square footage, if you have it. This is what I was saying earlier. If you don't have the information, it's just not going to be in there. Now, what I'll do is I'm able to, at the end, what you guys don't see is I'm able to export all this information into a spreadsheet, okay? So I'm going to go back to the beginning, and you're going to get a report, and you'll be able to see it online. You'll get to see your numbers compared to the average 1 to million fabricator, 5 to 10, 10 to 20, and 20 million or greater. So as this gets built out properly, this information will fill in. Now this is really cool information, and it will be there, and it will evolve, and it will constantly change as we update the data. Okay, that's real good. And then you could go across the top, left to right on your radio dial, and you want to focus in on this area. Okay. If you want to focus in on the percentage of sales, you go across, and there's all this good information. Okay. Now, the most important thing is that I'm actually able to take this and dump it, everybody's information in a spreadsheet, then clean it up, and then draw some conclusions that I then share with everybody in a meeting format and discuss some of this information. We also will see that some of the information might not be very good. So we can then challenge each other and then pull the information to make it better. And that's really, that process is powerful as a group, and to create good conversation and continuous improvement in our organization. And then also use it to help set your budgets and budget process for years going forward. That's kind of that's my overview. Oh, one thing that I sent out to everybody, a lot of people are still doing their report on their own, and that's great, but we did make an offer. And if you have any other Rockheads that you're talking to, and they say they don't have time, we're taking that away, because we're going to do it for them. We're going to help them get on the right track. I'm going to do the report for them, and the more people I have, I might bring in some outside resources to help me get that report done, and then work with everybody, and I think that will help everybody going forward, or maybe answer questions. And I want to be here to help their business. So that offer's there. So Amanda sent out a information request. Some of that will, after that initial information request is done, I'll then probably reach out and have a discussion, because I'll need some other information to help fill it out. But I'll be able to do it on a high level for everybody, and keep things moving forward and create some good information for our members. So that's out there too. So hopefully everybody got that. And if you know anybody else that, and you're interacting with other Rockhead members, challenge them to use that resource if they don't have it internally, because it's only going to make our information better for everybody. All right, I'm going to open up for anybody who has any detailed questions.
I do have a question. This is Carmina, John. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. On the wages, I don't know if I missed it, but if our subcontractors are paid by the square foot, and like installers, okay, per square foot.
Yeah,
and
so
do we have an option there? And if we have in-house installers that are paid by the hour, how, let's see. Oh, by the square foot. Okay, got it.
So see on the bottom, you got that there, subcontractors. Yeah, right. And up here you have your hourly guys.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
I have a question. This is Mai from Precision.
Hi, Mai.
Our business is basically we have both tile and stone business, and right now our books are basically combined of the two, and we have never separated the two before. So I'm struggling with getting the balance sheet for just the stone business. Would you recommend for certain things like an accountant salary can be basically split by percentage of like the revenue for stone and tile?
No, so on the balance sheet side, you're going to want to use the total number because your business is combined from balance sheet side. So you're going to want to use that. When there's some of the other numbers, like your accountant, you would have to do that as 100% because that'd be kind of challenging. But some of the other numbers you can allocate by percentage. So if you have a feel for how much your tile sales are compared to your countertop sales, and allocate that percentage accordingly.
Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Yeah. Okay, well, I'll hang out for a few more minutes, or if anything comes up, feel free to email myself or Amanda. We'll reach back out. And thank you guys for joining today. I think that I'm excited by the response that, you know, there's a lot of people that are starting to get their information in and get it to us. Amanda has also set up a Dropbox, so if you want us to use the information, it's in a private Dropbox, so that I'll be able to mine your data from and get things moving for you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
See ya.
You soon.
Have a great weekend.
Thanks, John.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Bye, guys.